The coffee shop on Maple Street had seen better days, but to most of its regulars that was part of its charm. The worn leather seats, the scratched wooden tables, and the faint aroma of cinnamon that never quite left the air made it feel like home. For Claire Mitchell, it was more than just a workplace, it was her sanctuary, the one place where she could escape the chaos of bills piling up and her mother's mounting medical expenses. Claire had been working at Rosewood Cafe for 3 years, ever since she'd dropped out of college to take care of her mum. At 26, she'd become the kind of waitress who remembered everyone's order, who knew when to chat and when to leave people alone, who could turn a terrible day around with just the right smile at the right time. The pay was modest, the tips were hit or miss, but she loved the rhythm of it all, the morning rush, the afternoon lull, the elderly couples who came in every Thursday for their anniversary coffee. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. Claire was wiping down the counter, humming along to the oldies station that her manager, Frank, insisted on playing when the door chimed. She looked up and saw a man she'd never seen before. He was tall, maybe in his late 40s, with salt and pepper hair and a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her car. He carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence that came from never having to prove anything to anyone. "Good morning," Claire said brightly, grabbing a menu. "Sit anywhere you'd like." The man nodded and chose a corner booth, the one that faced the window overlooking the small park across the street. Claire gave him a moment to settle in before approaching with her notepad. "What can I get started for you today?" "Just coffee, please." "Black." His voice was deep and measured, the kind that made you listen carefully. "Coming right up." As Claire poured the coffee, she noticed Frank watching the stranger from behind the pastry case. Her manager had worked at Rosewood for 20 years and prided himself on knowing everyone in the neighborhood. A newcomer in an expensive suit was bound to catch his attention. Claire brought the coffee to the table. "Here you go. Let me know if you need anything else." "Actually," the man said, looking up at her for the first time. His eyes were a striking gray, analytical but not unkind. "I'll take a look at your breakfast menu." For the next hour, the man sat alone, occasionally taking calls on his phone, but mostly just watching the cafe. He ordered eggs and toast, barely touched them, and asked for several refills of coffee. Claire checked on him regularly, professional but warm, never intrusive. She had a gift for reading people, and something told her this man valued his space. Around 10:30, the morning rush had died down. Only 3 other tables were occupied. Mrs. Henderson with her crossword puzzle, 2 college students sharing a laptop, and a young mother trying to keep her toddler entertained. Claire was refilling the sugar dispensers when the man in the suit called her over. "Miss," he said, gesturing to the empty chair across from him, "do you have a moment?" Claire glanced at Frank, who gave her a slight nod. She sat down, a little uncertain. "Is everything all right with your breakfast?" The breakfast was fine, the coffee was excellent, actually. He paused, studying her face in a way that made her slightly uncomfortable. "I've been watching you work this morning." Claire's stomach tightened. That sounded like the beginning of either a complaint or something worse. "Oh? You're very good at what you do. Attentive without hovering. Genuine without being fake. That's rare." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a leather wallet. "I'd like to leave you a tip." "Oh, that's very kind, but you don't have to." He placed a check on the table between them. Claire's eyes widened when she saw the amount. $10,000. Her first instinct was to laugh, thinking it was some kind of joke. But the man's expression remained serious, expectant. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she picked up the check, confirming that yes, it really did say $10,000. "I can't accept this," she said immediately, sliding it back across the table. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not a mistake." "Sir, I appreciate the gesture, but this is too much. Way too much. My coffee refills aren't worth $10,000. A slight smile crossed his face. "I'm not paying for coffee refills." Claire felt her heartbeat quicken. Nothing about this made sense. She'd seen generous tips before, $50 here, $100 there from holiday shoppers feeling charitable, but this was something else entirely. "Then what are you paying for?" "Call it an investment in character. In a world where most people would take the money without a second thought, I wanted to see what you'd do." He leaned back in his seat. "My name is Victor Ashford. I own a company called Meridian Hospitality Group." The name hit Claire like a wave. Even she, who barely followed business news, had heard of Meridian. They owned luxury hotels and restaurants across the country, properties where a single night's stay could cost more than her monthly rent. "You're testing me?" Claire asked, a hint of indignation creeping into her voice. "Observing," Victor corrected. "There's a difference. I'm in town because I'm acquiring a property, a small hotel that's been losing money for years. The location is perfect, the building has good bones, but the service is terrible. No heart. I need someone who understands that hospitality isn't just about efficiency, it's about making people feel seen." Claire's mind was racing. She still had the check in her hand, and part of her, the part that knew exactly how many bills were waiting at home, how much her mother's medication cost, how close they were to losing their apartment, was screaming at her to take it. But something felt wrong about the whole situation. "I don't understand what this has to do with me," she said carefully. "Frank tells me you've been here for 3 years, never missed a shift, never complained, always the first to help others. He also mentioned you turned down a job at that new upscale restaurant downtown because you didn't want to abandon the regulars here." Victor paused. "That kind of loyalty is exactly what I need." "For what?" "I want to offer you a position, manager of the hotel I'm acquiring. Full benefits, competitive salary, comprehensive training. You'd be running a 40-room property with a restaurant and conference space." Claire felt dizzy. "I'm a waitress. I don't know anything about managing a hotel." "You know about people. That's harder to teach than accounting or inventory management." Victor pulled out a business card and placed it next to the check. "Think about it. The offer stands for 48 hours. If you're interested, call that number." He stood up, leaving both the check and the business card on the table. Claire stared at them like they might disappear if she blinked. "And the 10,000? she asked. "Consider it a signing bonus if you accept. If you don't, tear it up. Either way, you've already proven you're not motivated by easy money." Victor put on his coat. "That's worth more than you know." As he walked toward the door, Frank rushed over to Claire's table. "What was that all about?" Claire couldn't speak. She looked down at the check, at the business card, at her reflection in the window. Behind her, Mrs. Henderson was signaling for more coffee. The college students needed their bill. The toddler had dropped his sippy cup, and it was rolling toward her feet. Normal life pulling at her from every direction, and in her hand, an impossible choice that didn't feel real. Claire didn't sleep that night. She sat at her mother's bedside, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest, listening to the oxygen machine's rhythmic hum. The check and business card were tucked in her pocket, burning against her leg like they were made of fire instead of paper. Her mother, Patricia, had been diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease 2 years ago. The treatments were expensive, the medications endless, and the prognosis uncertain. Claire had become an expert at stretching dollars, at choosing between groceries and electricity, at smiling through the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from working double shifts and still falling short. $10,000 would change everything. It would catch up the overdue rent, pay off the medical bills that kept the collection agencies calling, maybe even buy them a few months of breathing room. The thought of tearing up that check felt like turning her back on her mother's health, on their survival. But taking it felt wrong too, like accepting charity, like admitting she was desperate enough to be bought. "You're thinking too loud," her mother whispered, her voice raspy but warm. "I can hear your brain working from here." Claire smiled despite herself. "Sorry, Mom, didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't. These days I sleep like a cat, 5 minutes at a time." Patricia shifted in bed, studying her daughter's face. "Something happened today. I can see it all over you." Claire hesitated, then told her everything. About Victor Ashford, about the check, about the job offer that seemed too good to be true. As she spoke, she watched her mother's expression shift from surprise to concern, to something that looked almost like pride. "And you said no to the money," Patricia said when Claire finished. "I didn't say no. I just didn't say yes. Not yet. That's my girl." Patricia reached for Claire's hand. "You've always been too honest for your own good. Even as a kid, you'd confess to things before anyone even knew they'd happened. Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "Both." Her mother squeezed her hand weakly. "But mostly a compliment. The world needs more people who can't be bought." "The world also needs rent money and medical bills paid," Claire said quietly. "True. But there's a difference between earning something and taking it because it's easy." Patricia coughed, a deep rattling sound that made Claire reach for the water glass. After a few sips, she continued. "This man, Victor. He's testing you because he sees something. Maybe you should see it too. The next morning, Claire arrived at Rosewood Cafe an hour early. She'd made a decision, though she wasn't entirely sure it was the right one. She needed to understand what Victor Ashford was really offering, what he actually wanted from her. Frank was already there, prepping the coffee station. "You look terrible," he said bluntly. "Thanks, Frank. You really know how to make a girl feel special." "I'm serious." "You didn't sleep, did you?" He poured her a cup of coffee, adding the exact amount of cream and sugar she liked. "That man yesterday, Victor Ashford, you know who he is, right? I looked him up last night." Claire had spent hours on her phone reading articles about Meridian Hospitality Group, about Victor's reputation as a brilliant but demanding businessman. He'd built his empire from nothing, starting with a single bed and breakfast in Vermont and expanding into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. People who worked for him either praised him as a visionary or quit within 6 months. There didn't seem to be much middle ground. "And?" Frank prompted. "And I don't know what to think. Why would someone like that offer a job to someone like me?" Frank was quiet for a moment, wiping down the espresso machine with more attention than necessary. "Can I tell you something and you can't get mad?" "When has that ever worked?" Claire asked, but she nodded. "I called him." Claire's head snapped up. "You what?" "Last week. He'd been in town scouting properties, and I heard through the grapevine he was looking for staff. I sent him an email telling him about you." Frank held up his hands defensively. "Before you explode, just listen. You're wasting your talent here, Claire. You're brilliant with people, you're organized, you're creative, and you're stuck serving coffee in a place that can barely afford to keep the lights on. This place gave me a job when I needed one, and you've more than repaid that debt. 3 years of perfect service, of picking up everyone else's slack, of making this cafe better than it has any right to be." Frank's voice softened. "I love you like a daughter, kid, but I can't stand watching you limit yourself out of some misplaced sense of loyalty." Claire felt tears prickling at her eyes. "You recommended me for a hotel manager position. I've never managed anything. You manage this place more than I do. You handle difficult customers, you train new staff, you fix problems before I even know they exist. The only difference is the title and the paycheck." Frank pulled an envelope from his apron pocket. "He left this for you. Said to give it to you if you came in looking confused." Inside was a handwritten note on heavy cardstock. "Claire, real leadership isn't about credentials or experience. It's about character. I've interviewed 100 people with impressive resumes and empty souls. You have something they don't. You genuinely care. The hotel is called the Hartwell. It's on Riverside Drive, 10 minutes from where you live. Come see it before you decide. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., VA." The next afternoon, Claire stood in front of the Hartwell and tried not to let her disappointment show. The building was beautiful, a historic brick structure with arched windows and ornate cornices, but it was clearly struggling. The paint was peeling, the sign was faded, and through the windows she could see a lobby that looked stuck in 1985, complete with dusty plastic plants and worn carpet. Victor was waiting inside, talking to a woman in her 60s who wore too much perfume and a permanent scowl. When he saw Claire, his expression shifted into something approximating relief. "Claire, thank you for coming." He gestured to the woman beside him. "This is Diane Carmichael. She's been managing the Hartwell for 15 years. Diane looked Claire up and down like she was assessing livestock. "You're the waitress?" "I am," Claire said evenly, refusing to be intimidated. "Victor tells me you're going to be my replacement." Diane's laugh was bitter. "Good luck with that. This place is a sinking ship, and no amount of cheerful service is going to save it." "Diane," Victor started, but the older woman cut him off. "No, she should know what she's getting into. The staff is lazy, the guests are demanding, and the building itself is falling apart. I've been asking for renovations for 5 years, but corporate always has other priorities." She grabbed her purse from behind the desk. "I'm done. 2 weeks' notice as of today. Maybe your waitress can work a miracle." She stormed out, leaving an awkward silence in her wake. Victor sighed. "Well, that went better than expected." "Better?" Claire couldn't help but laugh. "She basically said this place is doomed. She's not entirely wrong. But she's also been part of the problem. Resistant to change, hostile to new ideas, more interested in protecting her territory than improving the business." He walked toward the elevator. "Come on, let me show you the rest." As they toured the property, Claire's mind raced. The hotel had good bones, as Victor had said, but it needed more than fresh paint and new carpets. It needed a vision, a sense of purpose, something that would make it stand out in a competitive market. They ended up on the roof, which had a stunning view of the river and the city beyond. The sun was starting to set, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. "I can't do this," Claire said suddenly. "I appreciate the offer, I really do, but I'm not qualified. I'd be setting myself up to fail, and worse, I'd be letting you down." Victor leaned against the railing, his expression unreadable. "Do you know why I really offered you this job? Because Frank called you? Because 3 months ago my daughter was going through a rough time. Depression, anxiety, the whole mess. She was in town visiting me and stopped at Rosewood for coffee. You spent 20 minutes talking to her about absolutely nothing. The weather, a book you'd read, some funny story about a regular who collected ceramic frogs. She said it was the first time in weeks she'd felt like a normal person instead of a problem to be solved." Claire remembered. A young woman with sad eyes and a forced smile. She'd seemed like she needed a friend, so Claire had simply been one. "She told me about you," Victor continued, "about how you made her feel seen without making her feel pitied. That's a gift, Claire. And it's exactly what this place needs. Someone who sees potential instead of problems, who makes people feel valued instead of processed." Claire's throat tightened. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail. But what if you don't?" He turned to face her fully. "I'm not offering you this job because I think you'll be perfect. I'm offering it because I think you'll care enough to figure it out. And in my experience, that matters more than any degree or certification." The check was still in Claire's pocket. She'd carried it with her like a talisman, a reminder of the choice she had to make. Now, standing on this rooftop with the city spread out before her, she finally understood what Victor had been offering all along. Not money, not charity, not even a job, really. A chance. Claire accepted the position the next morning, though she insisted on one condition. She wouldn't take the $10,000 check. If she was going to do this, she wanted to earn it legitimately, through the salary Victor had promised. He'd smiled at that, a genuine warmth breaking through his usual reserved demeanor, and agreed. Her first day at the Hartwell was baptism by fire. The staff consisted of 7 people, and within the first hour Claire understood why Diane had been so bitter. The front desk clerk, a man named Roger in his early 30s, spent more time on his phone than helping guests. The housekeeping supervisor, an older woman named Marjorie, moved at a glacial pace and resented any suggestion that contradicted her 15 years of experience. The maintenance worker, a talented but cynical man named Carlos, had apparently given up trying to fix anything beyond emergency repairs because, as he put it, nobody listens anyway. The morning of her second week, a guest complained that her room hadn't been cleaned in 2 days. When Claire investigated, she found that Marjorie had marked the room as serviced without actually sending anyone to clean it. The guest had a "Do Not Disturb" sign up, Marjorie said defensively when confronted. "We can't just go in whenever we want." "The sign was only up yesterday," Claire said, keeping her voice level, "and she specifically requested service this morning. I saw the note she left at the front desk." "Well, Roger should have told me." "Roger did tell you." "I saw the message slip." Marjorie's face reddened. "Listen, honey, I've been doing this since before you were born. I don't need some waitress telling me how to do my job." It was the 3rd time that week someone had called her the waitress, with that particular tone of condescension. Claire felt her patience, already worn thin by a dozen other small disasters, finally snap. "You're right," she said quietly. "You have been doing this for 15 years. And in that time, this hotel has gone from 4 stars to barely 2. Occupancy is down, reviews are terrible, and we're hemorrhaging money. So maybe, just maybe, the way you've been doing things isn't working." The entire housekeeping staff had gone silent. Marjorie stared at Claire like she'd been slapped. "If you have a problem with my management, you can take it up with Mr. Ashford," Claire continued. "But while I'm here, rooms get cleaned when guests request it, not when it's convenient for us. Is that clear?" Marjorie grabbed her keys and stormed off. Claire watched her go, her heart pounding. She'd never spoken to anyone like that before. Part of her felt guilty, but another part, a part she hadn't known existed, felt oddly powerful. Carlos appeared at her elbow. "About damn time someone said it. Did I just make a huge mistake?" Claire asked. "Probably, but it was a beautiful mistake." He handed her a clipboard, Speaking of mistakes, you should probably know the boiler's on its last legs. The roof is leaking in 3 places, and the kitchen refrigerator is held together with duct tape and prayers. Claire looked at the list and felt overwhelmed all over again. How much would it cost to fix all this? More than Diane ever got approved, that's for sure. Carlos studied her face. But I'll tell you what I told her, and what she never wanted to hear. There are workarounds. Creative solutions. The refrigerator just needs a new compressor and some rewiring. I can do that for parts cost. The roof leaks can be patched temporarily until we can afford a real fix. The boiler's the real problem, but we might make it through the season if we're lucky. And if we're not lucky, then we all get really good at explaining to guests why they're taking cold showers. Despite everything, Claire laughed. Okay, show me what you need, and I'll figure out how to get it approved. Over the next 3 weeks, Claire threw herself into learning everything about hotel management. She watched YouTube videos on inventory systems, read articles about hospitality trends, and spent late nights reviewing financial reports until the numbers started making sense. She shadowed each department, learning the rhythm of housekeeping, the complexities of front desk operations, the chaos of kitchen management. But more than that, she talked to people. She learned that Roger was studying for his CPA exam and worked the front desk because the hours were flexible. She discovered that Marjorie was terrified of computers and had been hiding her illiteracy of modern booking systems for years. She found out that Carlos had actually studied architecture before a family crisis forced him into maintenance work, and he had brilliant ideas for improving the building's efficiency. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. Claire instituted a morning meeting where staff could voice concerns and share ideas. She created a system where employees could earn bonuses for exceptional guest reviews. She worked with Carlos to prioritize repairs that would have the biggest impact on guest experience. She even convinced Victor to approve a modest budget for updated linens and a fresh coat of paint in the lobby. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. One afternoon, a woman in her early 40s checked in with her teenage daughter. Her name was Jennifer Holloway, and Claire recognized her immediately. She was a prominent food blogger with over 500,000 followers. Claire had read her scathing review of the Hartwell from 2 years ago. Dated, disappointing, and definitely not worth your time. Jennifer didn't recognize the hotel at first. "Has this place been renovated?" she asked Roger. "Working on it," he said, handing her the room keys. Claire watched from her office, debating whether to introduce herself. Before she could decide, Jennifer's daughter came downstairs an hour later, clearly upset. Claire approached carefully. "Is everything okay?" The girl, maybe 16, wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm fine. Just my mum and I are fighting. Same stupid argument we always have." "Do you want to talk about it?" Claire asked gently. "I'm Claire. I manage this place." "I'm Ashley." She hesitated, then the words tumbled out. "My mum wants me to be a food blogger like her. She's been grooming me for it since I was 12, teaching me about plating and photography and building a brand. But I hate it. I want to study environmental science. She thinks it's a waste of my potential." Claire sat down beside her. "That sounds really hard, feeling like you have to choose between making your parent happy and following your own path. Did you ever have to make that choice?" "Sort of. I dropped out of college to take care of my sick mum. I thought I was giving up everything. But then I realized that sometimes the detours teach us more than the planned route." Claire smiled. "What does environmental science make you feel?" "Alive," Ashley said immediately. "Like I'm doing something that matters." "Then maybe that's your answer. Your mom loves you. That's why she wants the best for you. She just might have different ideas about what best means, but ultimately you're the one who has to live your life." They talked for another 20 minutes. When Jennifer came looking for her daughter, she found them laughing over Claire's story about a regular at Rosewood who insisted on bringing his pet parrot to breakfast. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said, assuming her daughter had been bothering the staff. "Ashley, come on. We're going to dinner." "Actually, Mum, the manager here was just telling me about the restaurant downstairs. She said they source their produce from local farms. Can we eat here instead?" Jennifer looked surprised but agreed. That evening, Claire personally ensured their meal was perfect. Not fancy, just good honest food served with genuine care. She didn't mention knowing who Jennifer was. She simply treated them like valued guests who deserved attention. 3 days later, Claire was reviewing the morning reports when Roger called her to the front desk. "You need to see this," he said. turning his computer screen toward her. It was Jennifer Holloway's blog. The latest post was titled, "Second Chances, How the Hartwell Hotel Surprised Me." Claire's hands trembled as she read, "I'm not usually one to revisit places that disappointed me. Life's too short, and there are too many new restaurants and hotels to discover. But when a booking mistake led me back to the Hartwell, I was prepared for the worst. Instead, I found something unexpected, a hotel in transition. The bones of elegance are still there, now paired with genuine warmth that's impossible to fake. More importantly, I met a manager named Claire who reminded me what hospitality is really about, not perfection, but presence. Not polish, but care. The Hartwell isn't trying to be the fanciest hotel in town. It's trying to be the kind of place where you feel like you matter. And honestly, that's so much better. 4 out of 5 stars. The 5th is waiting for when they finish their renovations, which, based on what I saw, is only a matter of time." The post had been shared hundreds of times already. The phone started ringing with reservation requests before Claire even finished reading. Victor called an hour later. "I just saw the blog post. How did you manage that?" "I didn't manage anything," Claire said honestly. "I just talked to her daughter like she was a person, not a potential review." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Victor said, "That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. Well done, Claire." After he hung up, Claire sat in her office staring at the screen. For the first time since accepting this job, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she actually knew what she was doing. But that feeling lasted exactly until Marjorie appeared in her doorway, white-faced and shaking. "We have a problem," she said. "A big one. The couple in room 304 just found out the jewelry they left in the safe is missing. A diamond necklace worth $50,000. The next 6 hours were the longest of Claire's life. The couple in room 304, Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, were understandably distraught. The necklace had been a family heirloom, passed down through 3 generations. Mrs. Brennan kept repeating, "We trusted you with it. We put it in your safe." Claire's first call was to Victor, her second to the police. While they waited for officers to arrive, she interviewed every staff member who'd had access to the room. Roger had checked the Brennans in. Marjorie's team had cleaned the room twice. Carlos had fixed a leaky faucet the day before. Everyone denied touching the safe. Everyone looked nervous. The police arrived and took statements. Officer Kendrick, a tired-looking woman in her 40s, pulled Claire aside. "Without evidence, there's not much we can do. Could be staff, could be another guest, could be the couple themselves for insurance fraud. We've seen it all." "These people aren't committing fraud," Claire said firmly. Mrs. Brennan was crying so hard she could barely breathe. "Then someone on your staff is a thief." Officer Kendrick closed her notebook. "I'll file the report, but honestly, if that necklace is gone, it's gone. Start looking for a new job because this kind of thing kills a hotel's reputation." After the police left, Claire sat in her office with her head in her hands. The blog post that had seemed like such a victory this morning now felt like a cruel joke. What good was excellent service if guests couldn't trust their belongings were safe? There was a knock on her door. Carlos stood there, looking uncomfortable. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and you're probably going to fire me." Claire's heart sank. "Did you take the necklace?" "What?" "No. Jesus, Claire, no." He ran a hand through his hair. "But I saw something yesterday. When I was fixing the faucet, Marjorie came in to check the room. I was in the bathroom, so she didn't know I was there. She opened the safe." "Why would she do that?" "I don't know. At the time, I figured she was just being nosy. You know how she is about maintaining standards. But she seemed rattled when she realized I was there. Said she was making sure it was working properly." Carlos met her eyes. "I should have said something then. I'm sorry." Claire felt a chill run down her spine. "Where's Marjorie now?" "Haven't seen her since this afternoon. Right after the police showed up, she said she wasn't feeling well and went home." Claire grabbed her phone and called Marjorie's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. "Carlos, I need you to stay here and manage things. I'm going to Marjorie's house." "Claire, maybe you should call the police." "And tell them what? That someone saw her open a safe. That's her job." Claire grabbed her keys. "If I'm wrong, she'll just think I'm checking on a sick employee. If I'm right," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Marjorie lived in a small house on the edge of town, the kind of place that had probably been charming 40 years ago, but now just looked tired. Claire knocked on the door, her heart hammering. No answer. She knocked again. "Marjorie, it's Claire. I just want to talk." Finally, the door opened a crack. Marjorie's eyes were red-rimmed, her face blotchy from crying. "Go away." "I can't do that. We need to talk about what happened." "I don't know what you're talking about." "The necklace, Marjorie. Carlos saw you open the safe." The older woman's face crumpled. She tried to close the door, but Claire gently pushed it open and stepped inside. The house was cluttered but clean, full of photographs of children and grandchildren. On the coffee table, Claire saw a stack of medical bills. "I didn't want to," Marjorie whispered. "God, I didn't want to. But my grandson, he needs surgery. His parents don't have insurance and I've been helping them, but it's not enough." "It's never enough." Claire felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "So you stole from a guest. I was going to return it. I swear I was just going to pawn it for a few months, get the loan I needed, then buy it back before they noticed." Marjorie sank onto the couch, sobbing. "But then they checked their safe early and everything fell apart, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Where is it now?" Marjorie got up and retrieved a small jewelry box from her bedroom. Inside was the necklace, diamonds glinting under the lamplight. Claire had never felt such a complicated mix of emotions: relief, anger, pity, disappointment. "You know I have to call the police." "I know." Marjorie's voice was hollow. "I'll probably go to jail. My daughter will never forgive me, the grandkids." "How much does your grandson need for the surgery?" Marjorie looked up, confused by the question. 15,000. Why does it matter? Claire thought about the check she'd refused, about the choice she'd made to earn her success rather than accept it as a gift. She thought about her mother's medical bills, about knowing what it felt like to watch someone you love suffer because you couldn't afford to help them. She pulled out her phone and called Victor. "I found the necklace," she said when he answered, "and I found who took it. But I need you to trust me on something, and I need you to trust me quickly." 20 minutes later, Victor arrived at Marjorie's house. Claire explained everything: the grandson's surgery, the medical bills, the desperate decision that had spiraled out of control. "What exactly are you proposing?" Victor asked when she finished. "Marjorie pays back the Brennans for the emotional distress. Call it $5,000. We arrange a payment plan she can actually afford. In exchange, they don't press charges." "And the rest of the surgery cost?" Claire took a deep breath. "I want to use my signing bonus. The $10,000 I refused to take as a check. I'll accept it now, and I'll give it to Marjorie for her grandson." Victor stared at her for a long moment. "You do realize that sets a terrible precedent, that it essentially rewards theft. I realize it's complicated, but I also realize that good people sometimes make terrible choices when they're desperate. Marjorie made a mistake, a huge one, but she was trying to save a child's life." Claire met his eyes. "I'm not saying there shouldn't be consequences. She should lose her job, she should have to pay restitution, but destroying her entire life, sending her to jail, that doesn't help anyone." Marjorie was crying again, but quietly now, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Victor considered this. "If I agree, and that's a big if, she's fired immediately. No references, no second chances." "Agreed," Claire said. "And you're sure about the bonus? That money was yours to do with as you pleased. I'm sure this feels right." Victor pulled out his phone and made a call. Claire couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched his expression shift from serious to thoughtful, to something that might have been impressed. When he hung up, he said, "The Brennans have agreed, on the condition that Marjorie writes them a formal apology, and that this never becomes public. They have grandchildren too, they understand desperation." The relief in the room was palpable. Marjorie grabbed Claire's hand. Thank you so much. I'll pay back every penny, I swear." "You'll pay back the Brennans," Claire corrected gently. "The surgery money is a gift. But Marjorie, you need to get help. Real help. Talk to someone about why you thought theft was your only option instead of asking for assistance." After they'd worked out the details and Victor had left to personally return the necklace to the Brennans, Claire drove back to the Hartwell. She was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, and yet somehow more certain of her path than she'd ever been. Carlos was waiting in the lobby. "Well?" "Crisis averted. Necklace returned. Marjorie's gone, but the Brennans aren't pressing charges." "How the hell did you pull that off?" "Honestly, I have no idea. I just did what felt right." Roger approached them looking sheepish. "So I've been thinking. Now that Marjorie's gone, you're going to need a new housekeeping supervisor. I know someone, my sister. She's got hospitality management experience, and she's been looking for work since her hotel closed last month. Have her call me tomorrow, Claire said. We'll set up an interview. Over the next 3 months, the Hartwell transformed. Claire hired Roger's sister, Amanda, who brought fresh energy and modern systems to housekeeping. She promoted Carlos to facilities manager and got Victor to approve a real renovation budget. She implemented training programs, updated the website, and personally responded to every online review, good or bad. Occupancy rates climbed, guest satisfaction scores soared. The hotel started turning a profit for the first time in 5 years. And through it all, Claire kept a photograph on her desk, the one her mother had taken of her on her first day as manager, standing in front of the Hartwell sign. She looked terrified in that photo. Now, 6 months later, she just looked like she belonged. On a quiet Tuesday morning, almost exactly a year after Victor had first walked into Rosewood Cafe, Claire was reviewing financial reports when her phone rang. Miss Mitchell, this is Richard Chen from the Downtown Business Association. We'd like to feature the Hartwell in our annual showcase of revitalized local businesses. Your turnaround story has been quite remarkable. After she hung up, Claire walked down to the cafe where Frank was having his weekly coffee. He'd become a regular at the Hartwell's restaurant, claiming he needed to keep an eye on his protégé. You look disgustingly happy, he observed. I am disgustingly happy, Claire admitted, sliding into the booth across from him. Is that allowed? Only if you promise not to become one of those insufferable people who's always talking about their fulfilling career. Deal, she paused. Frank, thank you for making that call, for believing I could do this before I believed it myself. Don't get mushy on me, kid. You did the work. I just opened a door. He raised his coffee cup. To refusing the easy money and earning the hard victory. Claire clinked her cup against his, smiling. That evening, she sat with her mother in their new apartment. Nothing fancy, but significantly better than the place they'd been about to lose a year ago. Patricia's health had stabilized with better medication and less stress. She'd even started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. You know what I'm proudest of? Patricia said, putting down her brush. What? That when someone offered you a shortcut, you chose the long way around. Not because you're a martyr, but because you knew that's how you'd actually become the person you wanted to be. Claire thought about the $10,000 check she'd eventually accepted, not as a gift, but as payment for work she'd actually done. She thought about Marjorie, who sent her a card every month with a small payment toward her debt and updates about her grandson's recovery. She thought about the staff at the Hartwell, who'd gone from resentful and burned out to engaged and proud of their work. Most of all, she thought about Victor's question on that rooftop. What if you don't fail? She hadn't failed. She'd stumbled, made mistakes, had moments of crushing doubt, but she hadn't failed. And that, Claire realized, was worth more than any amount of money could buy.